The first drop, the gentle rhythm of arrival. Have you ever noticed, dear listener, how the world seems to hold its breath just before a rain begins? It's a moment of exquisite stillness, a quiet pause that asks us to slow down too. Tonight, this particular memory begins right there in that hush, just as I was climbing the narrow wooden steps that led up to the old archival attic. Do you remember that attic? It wasn't grand, but it was profoundly ours. The air grew immediately softer, up there, tasting slightly of dry cedar and patience. As I pushed open the low door, the outside world, with all its sharp edges and its clamor, simply faded. It was less like entering a room and more like slipping under a weighted blanket. Can you feel that instant sense of relief, that unwinding in your shoulders, as if you finally put down a burden you hadn't realized you were carrying? I settled myself near the small dormer window, tucked right into the quietest corner, and waited. And that's when the first sound came, not a crash or a sudden deluge, but the singular, isolated sound of the first drop. Tap. It was the most gentle announcement, a tiny drumbeat on the rooftop shingles, quickly followed by another, and then another. Tap, tap, tap. It's a sound so pure, so uncomplicated, that it acts like a tuning fork for the mind, resetting the frenetic speed of the day to a deep, slow rhythm. The rain started softly, almost timidly at first, like a child, tracing hesitant lines on a dusty pane of glass. But quickly, the scattered drops merged into a flowing conversation. It became a steady, cohesive murmur, a powerful yet profoundly protective sound. Imagine 1,000 tiny, soft hands stroking the roof, creating a continuous oceanic sound bath. This rhythm is so crucial to the feeling of the attic. It instantly establishes a boundary. Every drop hitting the roof is a gentle reminder. You are here. You are safe. The outside can wait. The rhythmic repetition, the sheer consistency of the sound, is perhaps the most soothing sound in the world. It's the sonic equivalent of rocking gently back and forth. As the rain deepened, it washed away the mental debris of the day. The little worries that had been clinging to the edges of my thoughts like small irritating burrs were smoothed and quieted by the hypnotic sound. I closed my eyes and the sound swelled, feeling less like external noise and more like the sound of my own quiet, comfortable being. It was the sound of arrival, not just arriving in a physical space, but arriving home within myself. It was the rain saying, "Rest now. I will guard the door." And in that simple rhythm, I felt an anchor drop deep down inside, holding me steady in the quiet sea of the night. Do you feel that slow, steady rock beneath you now, carried by the sound of the rain? Just allow your breath to match its gentle tempo, slow and steady. The scent of memory and dust now. Let's allow the rain's sound to become the background hum and shift our focus to something deeper, something quieter. The scent. The true atmosphere of this archival attic isn't just heard, it's inhaled. When I settled in, the air itself felt textural. It was a marvelous blend, complex yet utterly relaxing, a perfume composed of time and tranquility. The primary note, soft and grounding, was the deep, dry scent of archival paper. Thousands of silent pages, holding faint, ink and forgotten years. It's not a sharp smell, it's gentle, like dried petals or old linen. But then the rain began its work. As the moisture seeped into the old structure, the air changed again. The second note rose up, the rich, reassuring scent of cedar wood, damp and warm. This smell is like a promise of permanence, of something solid and dependable surrounding you. Can you almost taste that slight woody spice on your tongue, soft and clean? And finally, the dust. Not the irritating kind that makes you sneeze, but the benevolent protective dust of time suspended in a peaceful place. It carried a hint of subtle sweetness, perhaps from decades of stored things. A dried flower pressed inside a book, a forgotten sachet of lavender. This combination, paper, cedar, and rain-dampened dust, creates a sensory cocktail that is uniquely calming. It's the smell of safety. It's the scent of things put away, finished and settled. It tells a quiet story. All things pass, but the gentle memories remain protected. I remember closing my eyes and breathing it in deeply. Each inhale felt like drinking a cool, dark tea designed specifically to quiet the nerves. It was a heavy air, but in the best way, like the atmosphere of an ancient forest after a long, quiet rainfall. This scent anchors the emotional landscape. Does your own memory hold a particular smell that feels like a quiet hug? For me, that night, it was the gentle mustiness of those archives. It felt like being wrapped up in an old favorite sweater, softly itchy, utterly familiar, and carrying the faint, comforting traces of many peaceful moments. In the attic, the scent of the archival boxes seemed to whisper, "We have been here for a long, long time, through all manner of storms, and we are still here, still whole." There is such peace in that realization, isn't there? That something can endure, not by fighting, but simply by resting quietly, accumulating patience and history. As you lie here, maybe you can imagine the subtle fragrance of old wood and cool air filling your own space now. Breathe deeply. Let that quiet, archival scent replace any lingering sharpness from the day. Just like the dust settling slowly in the dark corners of the attic, allow your thoughts to drift down and settle, becoming still, becoming quiet. The library of quiet shadows. The light in the archival attic was never harsh, never demanding. It was always respectful, always subdued. And as the day softened into the depth of the evening and the rain continued its gentle performance, the room transformed into a landscape of quiet, comforting shadows. The tiny dormer window, now laced with running streams of water, allowed only a diffused, milky glow to filter in. This light didn't illuminate. It suggested. It outlined the geometry of the space, the slope of the roof, the straight lines of the packed archival boxes, the sturdy, dark beams overhead. It felt as though I was inside a great silent library, where the books were not meant to be read that night, but simply to be held and protected by the gentle darkness. The darkness itself was an active presence, not a frightening void, but a soft, enveloping velvet. It was warm and dense, like the inside of a closed hand. Look around the imaginary room with me now. Can you see how the shadows pool in the corners, gathering density, softening all the sharp angles? The stacks of boxes, usually appearing rectangular and firm in daylight, now seemed to melt slightly into the dark, becoming less like containers and more like silent, sleeping forms. In this beautiful interplay of dim light and deep shadow, everything that was cluttered or complicated about the day simply dissolved. We are so often defined by what is bright and visible, aren't we? But here, the absence of light became a sanctuary. The shadows gave permission to stop performing, to stop being seen, and just to be. It's in these quiet shadows that true rest can begin. When the eye has nothing strenuous to focus on, the mind finally lets go of the visual grip on reality. The shapes become blurred, indistinct, dreamlike. They cease to be objects and become soft suggestions, silent companions in the night. Imagine the rain outside is the only movement, and the shadows within are the only form. It is the perfect balance, the dynamic sound holding you steady, the still darkness, cradling you deeply. This is a place where you don't need to orient yourself, where north and south, up and down, cease to matter. This is the library built for the spirit, a place not for finding answers, but for gently losing the questions in the quiet, comforting folds of the dark. Allow the soft, encompassing shadow to rest over your eyes now. Feel its weightless pressure, its gentle embrace. Just let the sights of the day drift away, absorbed by the beautiful, quiet darkness all around us. The warmth of forgotten stories. Settle deeply within the quiet of the attic. Surrounded by the murmur of the rain, my attention sometimes drifted toward the great silent witnesses surrounding me, the archival boxes themselves. Each one held decades, perhaps centuries of existence, letters, deeds, photographs, ledgers, the quiet proof of lives lived, worries borne, and joys treasured. And yet, in the darkness, they were completely silent. They weren't demanding to be opened, they were simply resting. This silence, this great reserve of history, brought an unexpected and profound sense of warmth. Why do we find comfort in being near forgotten stories? Perhaps it's because it reminds us of the endless cycle. The passions and anxieties that consumed the people of the past, they too eventually subsided into the calm of an archival box. There is a deep, soothing dignity in that cessation of effort, that quiet finality. I pictured the meticulous handwriting on an old envelope, the firm signature on a contract, the faded image of a smiling, unknown face. These were not grand narratives, but the small, human truths that make up a life. And here they rested, suspended in time, wrapped in dust and silence, guarded by the steady drum of the rain. It created a gentle philosophical resonance in the quiet of the night. My own thoughts, my own worries, they felt less urgent, less singular. They were simply a new layer of experience, being lived out, a tiny, fresh story unfolding within the vast, tranquil ocean of what has already been. When you are surrounded by the past that is not demanding anything of you, it offers a strange kind of freedom. It's the realization that you are part of something much larger, a quiet current flowing through time. The attic wasn't cold. It felt warmly imbued with the presence of patient, quiet humanity. It's the feeling you get when you stand in an old church or a protected garden, a deep sense of continuity. The struggles were real then, just as ours are now. But look, the world continues to turn, and the archive holds the memory softly. Allow yourself to feel the quiet weight of all those forgotten days resting peacefully around you now. They offer a silent invitation. Release your story for a moment. Let it rest, just as these documents rest. There is no need to write the next chapter tonight. There is only the quiet comfort of knowing that the simple act of living is enough. Just rest, wrapped in the warmth of the silent years, the humming heart of the storm's edge. The archival attic, high beneath the roofline, felt like a silent ship anchored right at the very edge of the storm. The rain, now fully established, was not just a drizzle, it was a rhythmic force. But instead of feeling exposed to the weather's wildness, I felt profoundly contained, wonderfully protected. It's an incredible sensation, the experience of being utterly still while powerful movement happens just inches away. We were right at the storm's edge, and yet the attic walls and the sturdy roof turned the chaotic rush of the wind and water into a deep, sustained hum. This humming heart of the storm's edge is what creates the perfect acoustic cocoon. It's the deep, non-stop drone of a world busily attending to itself, but unable to reach you. The sound becomes a thick, insulating blanket, muffling all the small, sharp noises of the world. Below, the sirens, the hurried voices, the buzzing anxieties of modern life. In that attic bubble, everything felt distant and irrelevant. I realized that the noise outside wasn't just physical sound. It was the entire demand of the outside world, the ceaseless requirement to engage, to respond, to rush. And the storm ironically became the guardian that kept that demand away. Think of the contrast. Outside, there is kinetic energy, cold water, and swirling wind. Inside, there is warm air, stillness, and the gentle, almost maternal presence of the old wood and plaster. The attic acted like a deep-sea diving bell, allowing me to observe the turbulence while remaining utterly safe and dry. Do you ever crave that feeling? To be near the action, close enough to feel its power, but entirely secure from its demands? It's a quiet mastery, a peaceful sovereignty over your own space and time. As I listened, the low hum seemed to vibrate not just in the air, but gently within. My own chest, slowing my internal rhythm to match the steady persistence of the rain. It was a physical release, a relaxation in the muscles around the heart, a settling of the breath. Just imagine now that you are in your own secure bubble. The gentle sound you hear, that deep, continuous thrum of the world carrying on without needing your input, is simply ensuring your privacy. Let that noise become a protective boundary, keeping the vastness out and the warmth in. You are exactly where you need to be, safe at the center, resting at the edge of the storm. The texture of timelessness. In the attic, surrounded by archived centuries and protected by the endless, repetitive sound of the rain, something extraordinary happened to time. It ceased to be linear, ticking or demanding. It took on a quiet, viscous quality. It became something you could almost touch, a soft texture. The rain itself was the instrument of this transformation, because it never varied its steady pace. There was no marker, no point of urgency to delineate one moment from the next. The minutes stopped being hard, distinct units and began to flow together, like warm honey poured over the stillness. Have you noticed how, when you are truly engrossed in a quiet, comforting activity, the tyranny of the clock disappears? That's what happened here. The sound of the archival attic was the sound of no schedule. It was the deep sigh of the universe saying, "There is nowhere you need to be but here now." I found myself noticing things that speed and daylight usually obscure, the way a shadow shifted only infinitesimally over the course of half an hour, the precise, quiet consistency of the rain's impact on the roof slate. These moments were stretched, magnified, given the room they deserved to unfold. It felt less like I was passing through time, and more like I was floating gently upon it, a calm boat on a slow, wide river. The past was quiet in the boxes. Beneath me, the future was an unseen mist beyond the rainy window, and all that existed was the beautiful, rich present. This state of timelessness is deeply restorative. Our daily lives are often fragmented by demands, deadlines, and the constant urge to look ahead. But here, the mind was given permission to stop calculating, stop planning, stop rushing. It could simply rest in the knowledge that all time was available and none of it was required. The texture of timelessness is soft, slow, and profoundly patient. It allows the mind to undo the knots tied by speed and efficiency. It is the deep, peaceful truth that we are always exactly on time when we are completely still. Let us now enter that gentle, flowing texture together. Feel the moments stretching out like long, quiet breaths. There is no rush to the next thought, no hurry to the next day. Just the slow, patient unfolding of this moment, accompanied by the endless, comforting sound of the persistent rain. Allow yourself to dissolve into the quiet current. The quiet conversation with self. Once the external world, the light, the noise, the ticking clock, had been gently neutralized by the rain and the shadows, a new space opened up. This was the quietest, most intimate part of the archival attic experience, the peaceful, non-demanding conversation with myself. This was not a harsh interrogation, or a motivational lecture, or a forced attempt at problem-solving. It was something much softer, something that happens only when the mind feels safe enough to drop its guard completely. It was the subtle surfacing of thoughts, feelings, and realizations that were so quiet they sounded like reflections, like gentle ripples on a calm pool. In the deep, slow quiet, thoughts drifted up effortlessly, like leaves released from the riverbed. They weren't sharp or anxious. They were merely observations about the day, tiny glimpses of forgotten gratitude, or a quiet recognition of where true ease resides. Have you ever noticed that the most important truths often arrive whispered, not shouted? In the presence of the steady rain, I was finally able to hear that whisper. The sound provided the perfect screen against which these soft mental images could project themselves. The noise was a cushion, not a distraction. This quiet conversation felt intensely human and warm. It was like sitting across from an old, trusted friend who requires no effort, no performance, and simply nods quietly as you talk. There was no judgment in this space, only gentle acceptance. I remember thinking about the sheer simplicity of comfort, the feeling of the heavy air, the scent of the wood, the predictable rhythm of the water, and realizing that this simple presence was all that was ever truly needed. All the complex striving felt unnecessary in that moment. When the world is quiet, our inner world is allowed to speak truthfully, often just stating the obvious truths we have been too busy to notice. You are tired. You deserve this rest. Everything will look different in the morning. This conversation is the final unwinding, the deep emotional grounding that precedes true sleep. It's the mind tucking itself in, giving itself a final comforting check and sighing with relief. Tonight, allow your own inner quietude to surface. You don't need to hold on to any particular thought. Just let the reflections come and go, like the gentle rain outside. Feel the safety of this quiet space you've created, where only the soft, true voice of your own heart can be heard. Let it speak softly to you now. You are at peace. You are perfectly held. The final drift. Surrender to the soft current. We have traveled through the soft arrival, the warming scent, the gentle shadows, and the quiet dignity of timelessness. Now, we come to the final, most crucial passage, the surrender, the final drift into the deepest state of rest. At this point in the night, the archival attic was completely saturated with peace. The rain was no longer a sound you listened to. It was the very atmosphere you breathed. It had merged entirely with the sense of being safe, acting as the singular, unwavering current that carried everything toward deep sleep. I remember the sensation of my thoughts slowing down to the same pace as the slow, heavy drops outside. They weren't stopping, but they were stretching out so wide and so far apart that the gaps between them became enormous, comfortable voids of peace. This is the moment when quiet wakefulness gracefully gives way to true rest. It is a moment of profound letting go. We hold onto the edge of wakefulness for so long, don't we? Worrying about losing control, about the nature of the shift. But in the attic, surrounded by the non-judgmental hum of the rain, the surrender felt easy, like floating effortlessly on water. Imagine the sound of the rain is a soft, deep current pulling gently but firmly. It doesn't rush you, it simply waits patiently for you to release your grip. The sturdy darkness beneath the heavy roof feels like the anchor, and the continuous sound of the rain is the gentle, irresistible pull. The final image before the conscious mind closed its eyes was the memory of the light on the window pane, diffused and blurred by the running water. It looked like a painted dream, a gentle, abstract wash of grey and pearl. Everything was softened. Everything was kind. This is your moment to fully trust the current. Let the soothing, constant rhythm of the rain take over the work of keeping time, of staying awake. Allow your awareness to grow heavier, warmer, and slower, sinking deep down into the soft density of the night. You are no longer inside the archival attic. You are the calm within the attic. You are the stillness protected by the storm. Release the weight of your eyelids. Release the tension in your jaw and Finally, release the need to hold on to any last conscious thought. The rain is singing you home, dear listener. Just let yourself be drawn entirely into the soft current now. It is utterly safe to fall deep, deep into the quiet, enveloping comfort of the archival dark. You are resting. You are protected. Sleep now. Sweet, peaceful rest awaits.